see evolving.
Sorry, Bob.
That's all right. Which we'll see evolving, I'm sure, over the next 6 to 15 months. So that, in terms of technology and its integration and making some of these materials more competitive, I personally feel, and with an engineering background myself, that, the improvement and enhancement and use of artificial intelligently controlled systems, and then the ability to reach more locally into these streams are going to be critical. And of a system where, we're talking investment breakpoints in the range of $1 to $3 million versus the range of, $20 to $100 million for more regionalized, MRFs. Then likewise, I think there's an opportunity, and here in Pennsylvania, we recently, I say we, but our Department of Environmental Protection recently released a general permit that anyone can use, hence the term general permit, for what's being called a rural transfer station, which is more of a recycling convenience center than it is a rural waste station. These sorts of facilities are very popular, especially through the Midwest. And to be able to hub and spoke in more rural areas where we have untouched opportunities, literally, we're here in Pennsylvania, although it may be archaic to some, we still have, many people open burning in the backyard kind of thing to get rid of these materials that are of use. We're hoping to see an expansion of that as well. And even in parallel to the concept of mini MRF opportunities. And the third thing I'll comment on that is somewhat related to this technology question, but I feel is a driver of it, okay, is that I feel we're gradually going to see a shift from the conventional, collection program model, linear model, to a MRF, where the MRF sorts the material, and then the same MRF sells those commodities and sets, their prices and benchmarks against cost recovery, profit, and also, a fluctuating commodity market, to a model where the consumer good company who needs to recover these materials for stakeholder value, for, answers to their sustainability strategic plans, are using these materials and collecting and amassing these materials, whereby the consumer good company is directly buying and procuring these recyclables from the collection program, and then simply using a MRF to pay the MRF and say, this is what I will pay you to sort the material that I already own, and use that material for their new containers and their new packaging material. So, this is a business model that really is a material ownership model, where it somewhat helps to circumvent the conversation of extended producer responsibility. And when I use the word circumvent, I use it in a positive way. So, that combined with localized technology that's gradually becoming more affordable and more common in use, and doing it in a way that can reach into smaller communities that have yet really to be tapped, is going to be a significant driver over the next 5 years.
That's great, Bob. Thanks for that response. I see one more hand raised. I see Jonathan. And given our time, maybe this will be our last question. We did have 4 kind of big overarching questions for the panel. We maybe got to like 2.5 of them, which is fine, because we can just continue those conversations in our breakout groups soon. And I think the questions from Wayne and Carolyn have helped expand our conversation as well. So we'll go to Jonathan, maybe another 5-10 minutes here, and then we'll take a quick break. Jonathan, please.
Thank you very much. So I work in the arboriculture field, and as such, we create huge volumes of wood waste, bigger than I think that most people could possibly imagine. I did a silly, as it is the season, a silly mathematical exercise to see what volume of oil could be displaced from the upcycling of Christmas trees using really conservative data. it was 1.9 million gallons of oil. That's just from Christmas trees. And that's taking into account the huge volumes of wood that's produced, hardening our electric circuit as we're ironically making electricity more available for Tesla's and air source heat pumps. We're having to push vegetation back from the wires, which is creating gigantic volumes. UMass Amherst estimated that it's 1 to 3 million tons a year from the not forest sources, that's arboricultural, right-of-way, municipal sources. So I'm struggling to try and find a better use for this. That wood chips are literally stored solar energy. I mean, it is photosynthesis. If you want to really get down to it, the zap of sun pops off the O's and keeps the C. And to decompose that wood thermally or biologically puts the O's back in again and releases the same CO2, whether you burn it or you allow it to rot. But you've squandered those covalent bond releases if you allow it to rot. So I really struggle with that. And I wondered if people could offer any suggestions. In the era of carbon is currency, we're struggling to understand what could we do. Could we use this for heating within the APS? Yet there's thousands of people who oppose that, suggesting it's draconian and resulting in asthmatic outbreaks. I know a lot of the materials we're dealing with are far more toxic and more challenging. Wood is relatively benign. It's just cellulose. There's no contamination by nature. But if this is something that we're really struggling to utilize, I see little hope for some of the more challenging, toxic, irritant inducing materials. And so I wondered if we could just chat about easy stuff before we lean into the hard stuff. If we can't figure out what to do with wood, God forbid we figure out what to do with bits of plastic or stuff that makes your hair curly.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think one way is to look at it as everyone's kind of, and Yuli, I'll get to you. Everyone's kind of working along their own sort of timeline and answering their own sort of questions. But yes, these are, like you said, easy stuff questions need to be answered too, and probably foremost. Yuli, you have a thought?
Jonathan, you're bringing back. Thank you for the question, because you're bringing one of my favorite topics, biomass. And just anecdotally, I think within this panel, we can do really cool stuff with biomass. Just saying, I'm a UMass alumni too, so everyone has to participate in this party. The interesting thing is that we don't realize this, but I'm gonna speak from textile as an example, not just because that's it. The tensile materials or the textiles that we see in our closets are made by wood and biomass, which was when we shifted from alpha cellulose to beta cellulose to be produced by mankind. So biomass has been now being looked heavily on as a new material for new consumer products. So we are seeing a lot of creation of products with what the consumer brands will call the plant-based materials. And you will start seeing in your closet things that say, well, you're using this sneaker that is plant-based, and you can put it back in your garden, because maybe that's how we divert this waste for only that has to be recycled in the hard way. So that's one point I wanted to add to that. That creates a really interesting opportunity for research and development, which is the topic of this panel, right? So what else can we do with that biomass? There is examples from the European markets. We have orange peels, which is not wood, making silk-like textiles. The question is, who is going to be able to afford that? How do we make it for the energetic necessities of the process? So how do we keep in balance the life cycle assessments of the energy of those two processes? But it's totally doable, and it could prevent certain uses for what we're using today for more hard, non-biodegradable polymers in replacing this. But everything goes back to the mass flows, right? How are you using that material? And we need to be more conscious of what do we use it for, right? So it's an exciting topic, and definitely a lot of research and development is going to go into that, but we're seeing it, and some industries have some history on how can that be the next Christmas tree, which I love the idea, be your next sneaker in the next year.
Thank you. I appreciate the innovative suggestions. This is a big challenge, and it's almost like the garbage industry is so big. We're the secret keepers to that. We understand the scale of the material that our society creates and disposes of, but most citizens are blissfully naive to that. And the same applies to arboriculture. We're so good at tidying up, but few people understand there's hundreds and hundreds of truckloads a day created within the Commonwealth, that it's a good fuel or fiber, whatever the end product could benefit our society if we think out of the box. But it's going to be compromised, and energy is a real trigger right now. And so fabric is a terrific idea. Thank you. But we already have wood heating, and while it's been used for thousands of years, we have better ways to do it now. But there's the naivete of the proletariat is just staggering, and it's just stepping on this. It just frustrates me. You can't just magic it away. It's here. It's preordained.
It is.
I always tell folks, if you've, and this is something I got to do in my capacity with MassDEP, is until you go out to a landfill and stand on the face of it and see the trucks unloading and just see the mass of what's getting put in there. It really, really gives you an understanding of what we're doing. I got some ash trees in my yard that succumbed to an emerald ash borer. So if anybody wants that wood, feel free to come on over. Just cut them down, take it. Laurent, you had do you have a comment?
It's a comment that is a little bit out of the topic, but it's because we're thinking recycling and solution for what is thrown away. But obviously there is another path, which is the first one, is to reduce. So this is something we are very focused on. And how do you reduce? You reduce in two ways. First, you pay attention to sourcing, what you buy, when and why. And second, you sort better. So, and sorting better has a tremendous potential, because then you improve the quality, and then you think circular to the point earlier, and local. And so there are tremendous options. I just don't want to forget totally about the reduce. Of course, it's not helping the business that is counting on the material. We want quantity and quality, but I'm sure reducing means better quality also.
One of those themes really touches everything here. Paying attention, whether it's paying attention to what you're throwing out, whether it's paying attention to what you are sourcing, what you are buying for your own operations.
Yeah.
Not all of us have the time to pay attention at a very granular level, but there are some folks who are. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think this is it. Pay attention. So we were talking about coffee pod earlier. So some companies we are monitoring realized that they were throwing more than 1,000 pounds of coffee pods a month. Wow. They didn't know it before. So when they see the data, they think about it differently, and they say, okay, are we going to continue this path for the next 5 years to come? Or are we going to change the coffee machine for grounded coffee things and stop these coffee pods and this thing? Yeah. And they change. So paying attention, yeah. Data. It's phenomenal.
All right. Any other thoughts? I think now would be a good stopping point, but I'm really, again, extremely grateful for folks for coming on the call today, providing these different perspectives, some of them quite brilliant and eye-opening to me, and hopefully to our audience here. I just think there's a lot of experience and knowledge in this room right now, and we could have done this for the 2.5, 3 hours, but I won't put that put that on any of our guests today. Now may be an appropriate time to take like a 10-minute break, and we'll reconvene at 11:30, and we'll get into our breakout groups. I'll have a quick announcement from Claudine Elian of our commercial waste reduction branch before we do that. Coming back from the break, And again, just thank you. We recorded this. I think I had a hiccup in the middle where I hit the stop recording button for a second, but we'll manage to stitch together and we'll post this online in the near future. So thank you again, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
See you in 10 minutes.